Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to this YouTube channel, Hiie Somatics. My name is Hiie Salma. I am an expert in somatic movement and dance, and a writer and an author. And I have invited here today Jack Goldingham Newsom to talk about meditation and letting go. I'm so happy to have you here, Jack. Just as a brief introduction, Jack is an eco coach, an entrepreneur who also helps other entrepreneurs, and somebody who has a very long history with meditation. He has meditated in different countries, different traditions, different settings, and also has like a family lineage with the practice of meditation. Welcome, Jack. And tell us more about your connection with this world of meditation and mindfulness.
Thank you. Thank you. I think the place to start is probably one of my first memories of meditation, which is being invited to go and sit with my grandfather in one of his little circle groups. And they used to hold these groups weekly where they would meditate together. And after the meditation, they would share something about how they felt relating to, the mood of the group or the feeling of the group. And going in, I was really, really scared because I was like, I can't connect. So I don't know what I'm connecting to. I don't know how to meditate. And I remember sitting there in the meditation and following what he said. And then everyone else gave their message, and everyone was like, yes, yes, it's a great message. We agree with it. And it came to my turn, and I said, everyone is feeling calm, but slightly uneasy, not at ease. And everyone was like, actually, that's true. Like everyone else had given these kind of messages of love or of shared joy. And I said something that was a little bit strange, but that was what came to me at this particular moment. And so I realized that meditation is something about connecting to yourself as well as feeling who you are and feeling the room that you're in. And that experience sticks with me through every time that I meditate. I now meditate every day, 25 minutes in the morning. I get up and I meditate. I've meditated in Japan. I've meditated in Paris, in Belgium, in New Zealand. And it's something that I really enjoy doing. I think on the days where I don't meditate, you can almost feel that there's something wrong with the day. Started on the right note.
That's very powerful. When you do your daily meditation practice, like how do you do it? What do you do during those 25 minutes?
I have a meditation cushion, and I think this helps me a lot because it's in this place where there is this cushion that I meditate. And when I'm on this cushion, I'm focused and concentrated. And it's this sense of place that helps me find this focus. So I sit down, I might chant something, a mantra, I might start off by doing some breathing exercises. It depends on what I feel like and whether I feel that my mind is going all over the place already or whether I feel quite calm. And then I will just sit in silence, either following the breath or following the feelings that come up in the body. And normally I will put a timer because sometimes I end up going for 40 minutes without realizing it. And there's other things to do in the day. So I put a timer for about 20 or 25 minutes and I just sit there.
Sometimes when you meditate, do you also get insights, intuitive insights about like you receive messages, for example, for the day, something to focus on, or it's mostly like a state of calmness and peace that you experience?
What I'm looking for in my practice right now is this state of calmness and peace and absolute connection where my mind is not up here, but down here in the body. And I can feel the difference between these two things. I can feel when my mind is floating around, attaching itself to different concepts, and when my mind is still in the body and I think using, my legs and my arms and my torso, not in my brain up here. And I'm looking for that feeling.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting because this channel is mostly about the body and the moving body, the sensing and sensitive body. So our questions here always have to pertain they're connected to the body also. Is there something else you want to tell us about the importance of this like bodily awareness for meditation practices also? Like I think one practice that meditators use a lot also is the body scan, where one goes with one's mental awareness to different parts of the body to do a check. What is happening here? What do I sense here? What is happening here? What do I sense here? What is it? What is happening in a different part of the body? So I'm wondering if you have anything else to say about the importance for the meditator, the importance of physical sensations and bodily awareness.
I think I have two things to say, I think, about this. The first, I definitely agree that this body scan is a really, really effective way to start a meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a good way to put your mind into your body and realize that you have different feelings and different sensations in different parts of the body. And it's also a way to reconnect the mind and the body, I think, because you start to realize that maybe you're holding tension in a particular part of your body, and that can tell you that, or that can help you to release that tension, because once you're aware of it, you can start to let go. And the second thing I would say is that I've just talked about meditation as something where you're sitting down, but meditation doesn't have to be sitting down. Meditation can also be standing up, washing dishes, walking, dancing, moving. I think meditation is a practice of connection to the self and a practice of finding stillness. And so we can do that practice however we feel is most appropriate to us. There's no one right way to meditate.
That's very important for the listeners to keep in mind. Jack, what would you tell to somebody who comes to you and says, I like dancing, I have a dance practice, but how do I make my dance into a meditative practice? How do I meditate and dance at the same time? Like, I don't know how to get into this kind of state when I dance. How would you guide this person?
I think I would tell them to focus on the breath first when they're dancing. Because when we're dancing, we often, or at least when I'm dancing, I'm focusing on where I'm putting my limbs and what I'm doing, in the physical realm. But this is something that we can learn from Tai Chi and from Qigong, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Each movement is synchronized with an in-breath or with an out-breath. And it's that synchronization that makes it a meditative practice. And the same thing is true for yoga as well. When we're moving, we're breathing at the same time. So I think focusing on how am I breathing when I'm dancing and bringing the awareness to the breath is probably the first step towards making your dance practice a meditation practice as well.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful, thank you. And Jack is a dancer also, like he mentioned in this comment, but he's a wonderful dancer. I know that myself. Now, Jack, you also mentioned this word letting go. Let's explore this topic a little bit. I've been very interested in this question of letting go, and listeners, you can also watch some videos about letting go specifically on this channel. So how can I, for example, use meditation with this theme of letting go? How can I learn how to let go with the help of meditation?
I also ask myself often about letting go.
Mm.
And I don't think I've developed a good definition of what it actually means to let go yet. But I think someone recently asked me or said to me, I'm trying to let go of a certain situation. And I said, so long as you're trying to let go of it, you're not going to let go because you're still holding on to it somehow. And this idea of letting go, I think, is enabling the mind and the body to no longer be attached to a particular situation. Like the situation is there, the situation is not there. It doesn't matter. And so you learn to accept the existence of this particular feeling or situation in your life. And then the situation no longer has control over you, but rather you are determining how that's going to affect you. And I think it's this process that I would characterize as letting go, because we can't imagine that if we let go of someone who's done something bad to us, for example, it's going to disappear and we're going to forget about it forever. That's not really going to happen. There will always be this relationship that has happened in our past, but we can get to a point where that no longer affects us or influences us, where we no longer constantly replay the situation in our head. At that moment where I think we can say we are letting go of it. And meditation is a good way to begin letting go of something and to find that point of letting go, because all you need to do is find the present moment. And when you're in the present moment, it doesn't matter what happened in the past, and it doesn't matter what will happen in the future, because the only thing that's there is the present. And the stillness and the certainty that the present moment can give you when you've found your meditative practice, I think automatically means that you have let go. And you might only let go in a 20-minute meditation for 3 seconds, 1 minute. But that 1 minute or 3 seconds of silence and of peace is your window into a world where you've let go of those situations for longer, for your whole life, for example.
Yes. I want the listeners to take this in, because I feel like this was a very important point about the ways in which meditation brings us to the present moment so that we do not repeat. I'm just rephrasing this again so that listeners can also, so that the mind does not replay the past scenarios or does not attach itself to some thoughts that we want to release when we want to release. Yes. And I wanted to talk to you in particular about this topic because I feel like under the umbrella of letting go, meditation plays a really big role. It's an important practice for somebody who wants to learn how to let go. Why do I feel this way? I feel this way because to me, this practice of letting go is a mental practice also. It doesn't maybe happen overnight that I'm able to detach myself from this past situation or a relationship or a memory or a traumatic experience. But it's through doing it over and over, through training the mind to stay in the present moment, I think, that we find some release, some letting go. And I think Buddhist practices are very strong when it comes to this idea of detachment or non-attachment. I think it's one of the foundational principles of Buddhist thought also, to learn how to not to like push away and desire a lot, kind of let to detach from the outcome, the desired outcome.
Yeah. One of the things that I see very frequently in people who just begin meditating is they go and they start meditating, and instead of holding on to the situation that they were wanting to let go of, They start holding on to the meditation itself. And they sit there, I want to meditate. I'm going to meditate. And I'm trying to meditate very hard. And I'm going to concentrate on my breathing. And they're using the exact same thought process, but instead of being attached to the situation, they're now attached to their meditation. The first, or maybe this is not the first lesson, but one of the lessons of meditation is that you shouldn't expect anything to happen in your meditation. Nothing's going to happen. You're just sitting there. You're just dancing. You're just moving. There will be no result. There will be no outcome. There just is. And that's a very powerful insight that comes after a while of meditation, or quite a lot of time. But when you arrive at that point, it becomes much easier to meditate, because you're not looking at meditation as some kind of technique that will get you somewhere, but just as a way to find present moment, a way to find what is.
Yes. And I think it's very powerful also in our daily life. Attachments are everywhere, I feel like, or expectations. And so when I learn on the meditation cushion how to be in the present and how to not to expect, how to not to look forward to having a particular outcome, I can, for example, in my daily conversations with friends or acquaintances or strangers, not to expect, for example, certain kind of outcome, or oh, they must respond in this way, or this should happen. And it's a very refreshing state to be in. Just to move about in the world without attachments to particular outcomes and scenarios. But it takes practice. I think it's not so easy to do.
This makes me think of the voice work of Patsy Rodenberg. And she talks about first circle, second circle, and third circle. And when you're in what she calls second circle, you're completely in the present moment. And so you're completely connected with the person you're talking to, or the trees that surround you when you're going for a walk, or the buildings that are next to you when you're walking through the city. And it's in this moment of second circle, I think, that we arrive at when we meditate as well.
Do you want to tell us about the other circles also? So we put this in.
Yeah, she has a book called The Second Circle, and she has a book also called Presence. These are ways to describe the way in which we relate to other people. So when we're in first circle, we're very closed. We're very, our energy flows back towards us rather than going out into the world. And if you think about someone who is shy or who is particularly vulnerable, they try to make themselves disappear. And this is the first circle energy. It's going into itself rather than giving towards other people. And on the other end of the spectrum is the third circle energy, where it's very loud. It takes up a lot of space. It's someone who's very, not necessarily controlling, but very dominating in terms of their energy. They might speak very loudly and seek to control the conversation. And you feel like your space is being invaded by this person because they're trying too much to project so much into the world. And it's only when you're in this place of giving and receiving, of being open to accept the energy of the other person and to give your energy to the other, that you find this point of second circle, which is the point of presence for her.
That's a very interesting theory also. Jack, may I ask you, one time when we had a conversation about meditation, you said something that was really helpful to me. You talked about this idea of coherence and alignment that we can practice in the meditation setting also. It was about the coherence between what I think, how I act, and how I feel, or something like this. You remember that conversation or this principle?
I don't remember that conversation, but I think...
And I think you linked it to meditation. You said that this is what that Hiie practice this when you meditate. Practice bringing your feelings in alignment with your thoughts, in alignment with your acts?
I remember this now.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's still very true, because often we can have a feeling or an intuition that something's wrong, and we go and do that thing anyway, and then we feel guilty about it.
Mm-hmm.
This creates a kind of attachment to that thing because we're going through a cycle of desire and fulfillment of the desire and then guilt based on this. And when we are completely aligned, when our thoughts and our actions and our values are aligned, we have found this point of stillness where we no longer have to judge ourselves or control ourselves because we are acting in accordance with what we feel and with what we think. And maybe a good example to illustrate this is when we meet someone for the first time, we often have a lot of masks on. We say this very often, that we don't present our true selves, we present some version of ourselves that might better align to what we think this person wants us to be. And so in this case, we're not acting as an aligned being. We're modifying who we are, and we're not being true to who we are. But if I was to take this situation of meeting someone for the first time and be in a state of presence and of truth to who I am, I wouldn't wear those masks. That doesn't mean that I wouldn't be aware of the other person and I would be completely detached from them. It means that I would be okay with presenting who I am, what I do, and what I think, in the knowledge that it is from this connection that I find my own strength.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's something that I've learned quite recently, is that my strength comes from knowing that my values and my thoughts and my feelings are aligned, and that I can present this alignment to the world, and it's okay to do so.
How are you learning this? Do you learn this through meditation or no?
Through many different things. Meditation, I think, is one way of learning it because I sit there and I feel presence and I feel aligned. And sometimes I get, like we said before, I get ideas or I get concepts or I get images of connection, which help me feel more comfortable about presenting the way I am to the world.
Mm-hmm. Jack, what would you tell to somebody who comes to you and says, I would like to explore this world of meditation, but I don't have the 20 minutes? Is there a way to like ease into meditation if somebody finds it difficult to, let's say, sit in meditation for 20 minutes or?
The first time I taught meditation, I was very eager and I invited people around and I said, okay, we're going to meditate for 30 minutes. And these were people who said they had some experience with meditation. And after about 5 minutes, there's lots of rustling, there's lots of moving. Someone started to lie down, another person got up. And I realized actually it's very, very difficult to meditate for 30 minutes when you don't meditate every day. So starting with 1 minute, 2 minutes of just finding the present moment, I think is the only way to go into meditation practice. Because if you set this really large goal of I'm going to meditate 20 minutes a day, you find it very, very difficult the first week, and then you'll stop. And you won't see the beauty of the present moment because you didn't allow yourself that possibility to go into it slowly.
Jack, is it something that I should like schedule into my day, or can I do it whenever?
I think it depends on what kind of person you are. Some people like structure and they like to know that at 8 o'clock every day I'm going to meditate. And that helps them keep a routine. For other people, finding some moment in the day where they can do this helps them feel more free. Like, I'm not obliged to meditate, but at some point in this day, I'm going to find this time for myself to find the present moment. So both work.
I love how you just put it. I'm going to find at some point during the day, there's this time when I'm going to like I find the present moment. I love this idea of finding the present moment. And to the listeners, you can also do a combination of both of these too. Like you can have, let's say, like a daily ritual during the morning, for example, or before you go to bed, you have a special moment for yourself. Or you can also like, and during the day, have these moments of finding the present moment too. One thing that helps me a lot when I think of when I practice meditation is the idea of listening. Sometimes I sit down or I walk about during my day and I tell myself, I'm just going to listen now. Listen to the sounds, listen to the present moment. It gives me an immediate connection to the awareness of what's happening. It takes me away from thinking my thoughts to let me listen. Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of
Yeah,
entry points to meditation, and
yeah.
listening is one of them. The breath is another one. The sensations or the feelings in the body is another one, like we talked about before. But most often we find something which we're going to focus on, which is not our thoughts and ideas and happenings in the world, but some kind of sensory data, like the air flowing through our nose, like the sound of the trucks moving past the window, the sound of people talking, the feeling of the heart beating in the chest.
Yes. And I love this point also. Why? Because what you just said made me think of this idea that meditation also makes us more aware of our senses. We use the senses, but we also become more sensitive people, I think. So it's not actually, now that I think about it, it's not only so that meditation is not only useful for me to like clarify my head and take care of the health of my thoughts, but it's also there so that I can feel and embrace the world with my senses also, different senses.
And to be okay with that sensory input, to not judge that sensory input, but to just experience it.
Yes. I just finished reading not too long ago a book called The Five Senses. I have it in my bookcase there. I should give you guys a precise title, but I love the book because in it, the author went on a journey of exploring an entire year from the perspective of her five most commonly viewed senses. And it's really like an homage to all the different senses and how to live in the world as a more sensitive, sensual, sense-aware person, because oftentimes we like lose connection to the fact that we can smell, we can see, we can touch. So meditation can heighten this awareness in us also. What else did I want to ask you? There was one question. Oh, I wanted to mention to the listeners also that one way we can ease into meditation is also through different kinds of movement classes where the class ends traditionally with a movement, like with a meditation segment. It's a part of a larger cycle of bodily awareness practices. Yeah? So even if you don't have the practice of sitting down and doing it during the day yourself, you can find meditative moments in other practices also. What else did I want to say? Jack, do you have something else to add to this conversation? Maybe there was a question I overlooked. I had another question actually that I wanted to ask you, but I felt like you answered that already. But the question I had in mind was this one. Sometimes I see people on social media, when they talk about letting go, they say, along the lines of what you mentioned earlier, that it's better to, instead of focusing on letting go, which immediately directs your mind toward this thing that you're trying to let go of. Direct your attention elsewhere. Learn how to move the attention to the present moment or something else, so that you don't constantly revisit the past or this thing that you're trying to let go of. I don't know, maybe you have thoughts about this, because on the other hand, I do think that it's important also to let go of, to go through the different stages of letting go also, like the grieving aspects, the anger, whatever other feelings come up with this. So I don't know if necessarily like moving my attention away from this thing that I'm trying to let go is going to do the trick. But I do think that at some point it is an important practice to embrace too, because sometimes we can stay too long with this thing that we're trying to let go of, and then it becomes a mental practice of like, wait a second, no, I've done enough of this. Oof, let me move myself to some other path with my thoughts.
Yeah, you're right. It's not about forgetting this situation. I think meditation can help us to accept that when we are feeling angry or sad, that is the way that we're feeling.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't judge this anger or this sadness as something terrible that we should try and wish away as quickly as possible, because it's happened to us. It's a normal human emotion that's come because of something that's happened in our lives, and it's got a right to be there. It helps us to deal with and to process this situation that's happened. And so meditation can help us to accept these emotions that are coming and say, yes, right now I'm feeling sad. Right now I'm feeling angry. I accept that emotion. It's there. And I'm just going to sit with it for a while. I'm going to let it come. Because when we fight these emotions and we stop them and we push them down further and further into our bodies, then we start creating blockages and we stop ourselves from feeling it properly.
This is a very powerful note also, I feel. Why? One book that I read recently made this comment about meditation. The author said, it's not about rejecting certain thoughts and telling ourselves we should not think these thoughts. Let's learn how to let go of these thoughts. Stop thinking like this. The author said, no, what is important is developing a different relationship with our thoughts, so that we're not a slave to any thought that comes to us. Like, oh, I should not think like this, or I should think positively always. And so when I listened to you, I heard that also, like welcoming the emotion, welcoming the thought, letting it be there, letting it come, accepting it. But it doesn't mean that emotion, that thought, that I need to think it, or it goes, it passes also. Or it transforms. Or
and one of the things you realize is that this sadness comes, but it will also go away, and it will be replaced by happiness or joy. And we're always on these waves of life, or these waves of emotion. And we're always, the way that we're feeling is always changing.
Yes. I love this idea. When I was so happy inwardly when you mentioned earlier that you have always had troubles with this word, like letting go, like what does it mean exactly? And I'm like, I'm the same way. That's why I want to talk about this, because fundamentally I don't understand what that means really. And so one way that it makes sense for me to think about letting go is through this phrase that you just gave us, which is, it goes away. Like letting go in a way means it goes away. I'm going to witness, or I see how it passes. It's going to pass. I'm leaving this behind, or it stays. Or there are many, I guess what I'm telling to the viewers also is that if you're like me or like Jack, we kind of have troubles with this word letting go, what that means. Then there are other words, other phrases that you can use instead, and maybe those you connect to more, you understand them more deeply. also, it's interesting because some of these words, we can also call them movement metaphors, in the sense that in this word there is some kind of movement. And maybe with some words we don't understand the movement in the word, but with some others, for example, it goes away, there's movement in it. I somehow feel I can understand that word better. I can practice that. I can relate to that. Well, Jack, now I come back to the question I asked you already. Any final words? Anything else you want to leave the listener with, or like a word of advice, or maybe there are listeners who would like to come and study meditation with you or practice meditation. Are you open to that also?
Yeah, I'm definitely open to teaching meditation to people. Right now I'm in Greece. Normally I live in Paris, so I do move around quite a lot, which makes it hard to have a solid group of people. But if people are interested, they can contact me and we can talk more about meditation practice. But I think what I want to share at the end is something which comes from Thich Nhat Hanh. Um, and one of my favorite mantras, meditation mantras of his, is when you sit down, you say to yourself, I am home, I have arrived. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to do anything. You have already arrived at the place you want to go. And by softly saying that to yourself, you're helping yourself to let go of the things that you're holding on to, because you're reminding yourself that that's already happened. You already have the potential to let go of the things that you're trying to let go of. And so by saying, I am home, I have arrived, you're allowing yourself to go through these processes of letting go. And I find it's very powerful for me when I find myself thinking over and over the same, this person did this thing to me, why did they do that? I can sit down and say, I am home, I have arrived. The present moment is here for me, and that's all that there is. And I think if you take away one thing from the conversation, it would be this: to find that present moment and to find the beauty in that present moment. And you will have found meditation.
We let there be a pause so listeners can take that in also. I have nothing else to say. This was a perfect conclusion. Jack, where can people find you? I'm going to put your website, your new website, in the information bar below. Do you want to say out loud also the title of the name of your website, or any contact information?
I write about ecology and about philosophy and about our relationship with nature on a blog called Plurality. So it's plurality.eco, E-C-O. And if you go to plurality.eco/eco coaching, that's where I offer the services of eco coaching. And I've also started to share more thoughts about meditation and about life and our relationship with nature on LinkedIn as well. So if you're interested in following me on a social network, then LinkedIn's probably the best.
Yes, and Jack is a wonderful writer, so read his writings also. And in your comments, the listeners, go to Jack also, so that he can teach you how to meditate in nature also. I think that would be a beautiful practice that we can embrace as we walk about in the world, in nature, or as we stand still next to an object like a tree, a stone, a river.
There's so much that we can learn from nature.
Yes.
But it's also very different meditating, in nature around trees versus meditating in a building. It's a completely different feeling and experience, I think.
Unexpectedly, we're continuing the interview. Tell us about that. Because it's such an important topic, actually.
I don't know why. I don't know why it happens, but I think I find it much easier to connect to myself and to find stillness when I'm sitting down in nature, when I'm sitting down in the forest or amongst trees, and I begin to feel their presence as beings rather than sitting in a room closed by myself where I feel my own presence. So try it. Advice to listeners. Try going outside and meditating, and try inside and meditating, and see what the difference is.
Exactly. And also, I share this sentiment completely. In nature, now everything is in movement. A tree is also in movement and growing, and there are processes. But being around natural elements that are in stillness, don't move, that can also feel very grounding. It can give us the sense of the still peacefulness also. Me as an animist, I believe in the soul of everything. I also feel when I meditate in nature that, yes, as you said, also I connect to the soul, to the presence of these natural elements. Also, it becomes like a non-verbal dialogue. My intuition also opens up more easily in the presence of natural elements. So it's something for the listeners to experiment with. Maybe a lot of us don't live right very close to nature, but there are elements in nature that we can easily find as we go to work, as we to connect to those energies. Can help us find the present moment too. Wonderful to talk to you, Jack. You're very thoughtful and poetic and inspiring. And Jack and I, we were talking about, before you listeners came in, we talked about another interview that we want to do, so that is in alignment with Jack's practice as an eco coach. So stay connected, and we will see you soon. And write to us with questions about our classes and offerings and coaching sessions, and we will see you soon. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you. Thank you. I look forward to the next one.
Mm-hmm.